This video is about a book for people who care about ending racism, and it's especially useful for white people to read. The book is titled Accountability in White Anti-Racist Organizing, Stories from Our Work, and it contains 11 chapters, each written by one or more experienced white anti-racist activists about how they do their work in an accountable way. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying it's about getting real. But don't just take my word on it. I recently spoke with two seasoned anti-racist activists in Peekskill, New York, and they don't appear in the book, but they've read it. We talked about what they've done as activists and how this book fits into their work. And here's what they had to say.
I've been struggling as a white man, working with this stuff probably 40 some years. Been doing workshops all over the country.
30 years community activist. I started out in organizing tenants in public housing in Peekskill. A year later I became chairman of the housing authority. I was 21 years old. And so I started organizing tenants. Two years later, Jesse Jackson's people, hey, I need a coordinator in your area, so on and so on. So eventually you're running into racism.
We had a group at the University of Massachusetts. We really started understanding this wasn't a black problem, and this wasn't something that you fix by $10 a Martin Luther King Scholarship Fund. This is really systemic, and it's the very fiber and the very weave of everything we are in our culture. We started with white on white and black on black, and we had some Latino workshops. I did all the white on whites.
Peekskill, growing up, the mayor and the whole council was white. My state senator, my assembly person, everybody was white. And so we would bring our grievances to them, and often you met with skepticism. Okay, yeah, the guy is beaten and he's laying in a pile of blood with his eyeball hanging outside his head, but that doesn't mean that that's racially motivated police brutality. You know, he must have did something.
And, you know, back in the late 60s, this was not real chic, white on white and white racism. And the 70s, 80s was not a large bathtub full of support.
Most of my struggles have been black people showing up, marching, picketing, organizing, whatever the case may be, fighting our fight, fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
Good old boy network. Every job, city job belongs to a fireman's son or nephew. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. And the fire departments, maybe 2 blacks, and that was after a big fight some years ago to get 1 black in.
In my dissertation, which was white on white, anti-racism manual for educators in the process of becoming, that was popular in the early 70s. And that really became something that was full of all kinds of documentation of me going through what I call the 5 stages of white consciousness. I don't know if you've read or heard any of it, but it's been used.
But the politicians here are so backwards. Their level of racism is among the highest I've seen, because their attitude is there's no racism in Peekskill. What does that tell you? What do you mean there's no? Well, there's racism in the world and in America, but not in this town.
The 3rd stage is the good white liberal. I just feel so strongly that it's such the most dangerous and insidious and hurtful group, and powerful. And then the newly aware white, and then the white activists.
You had the experience of whites coming to your meetings, and we want to help you, and we want to help you organize, and so you take them in and you work with them, and at the end of the day they just want you to vote Democrat, or they want you to join the Communist Party USA. I've been through all of that. When I say we, I mean in Westchester, the Committee for Justice. We had tremendous progress, successes, organizing around youth issues. We're lobbying for and getting a community center, getting a youth bureau, getting the first civilian review board in Westchester County for police grievances. Then last year we got embroiled in another battle, this time with city government. Racism, straight racism, the N-word being used to city employees. The foremen refused to train black workers, so for 15 years they're just pushing a broom. Parallel to that, the mayor appointed housing authority board members to hire a director to gentrify push poor people and people of color out. So we resisted, we fought, and we're right now in the middle of that battle. We packed the council meetings more than once, standing room only, and they try to dismiss us as outside agitators or a small vocal group with grievances, and yet we've seen time after time one white person go to the podium and say, the trash isn't being picked up enough. Oh, well, we have to change that and change the policy and rewrite the law. One person, white, and they're ready to jump and change everything. But a crowd of black people and white allies, they want to marginalize, they want to dismiss. I met with a couple of the members of the Anti-Racism Coalition. And then I went back to my group, Committee for Justice, which is an all-black organization. I said, listen, I met with some folks. I think they get it. I don't think we have to prove ourselves to them. I think that they've studied and they've confronted their own racism on different levels, whether it's subconscious, whether it's picked up from the process of being socialized in America, but they get it. I don't know, Darryl. We've been down this road before. At the end of the day, they're going to tell us to vote Democrat. I said, let's take a chance. And so we started working with CPARC, the Peekskill Cortland Anti-Racism Coalition. We started working with the Anti-Racism Alliance in Westchester. And what I found was that not only did they get it, but the reason they got it was because they studied. They studied racism. They studied white accountability. They gave me a copy of this book.
I've read a lot of stuff in the last several decades, and this goes right at the top of the list.
I read quite a bit, and if I never heard of the book, in my mind, it doesn't belong in the anti-racism, the human rights struggle. And so I hadn't heard of the book. One of the members gave it to me. I was a little skeptical.
Hey, they're talking about what I'm feeling. They're talking about what I need help with. Somebody else sees that. Somebody else understands it. Somebody else felt the pain.
And then I read it, and this is quite a while now that I read it, and I still refer to it because I find that the honesty, the reference point for white organizers, the fact that white people, because they confront racism, don't automatically drop the racist baggage that was taught to whites in America. They don't automatically give up white skin privilege even instinctively. And so this book is something where they can go back and say, you know what, I could have handled that differently. I'm being part of the problem.
That book talks about that aloneness, that emptiness, that anger, frustration, fear.
And my girlfriend, Sherry, my partner, she read it and she's like, oh my God. It's like, it's just so invaluable.
And that's another thing that book does. It gives us, these crazy white folks, product of so much, I won't take this off the tape, but all the mind fucking that goes on in terms of who we are and who people different than us are.
Forget about it being a book. It's an amazing document. It just boggles my mind when, if I read it again next month, I'm going to say, wow, I just experienced that last month. Or someone in the coalition said that they were having those feelings, found themselves being a little too vanilla. And, so it's just a tremendous contribution to human rights.
But now it's coming alive, and it's a movement. And we've had, I think, more than our share of successes.
We have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But we're making progress, tremendous victories. Everything we got, we had to fight for, and then we got to fight harder to keep it.
Yeah.
The struggle goes on every day for us, as in other parts of the country.
Movement. That's what it's about, isn't it? The movement. Well, there really is nothing else for you to say.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, 'cause I'm wiped out. I had
And you found a cup. You
I
want
had
a
radio.
refill?
Yes.
I'll bring it up, and I'll be out of your way.
Okay. Wiped.
Hey, how'd the last 15 minutes of the show go?
Oh, it heated up a little bit because I had to ask him some tough questions because he didn't want to take calls.
Oh, he didn't want to take
Right.
it. That pissed me off.
That pissed a lot of you. My phone started. I was getting texts and emails.
You want to leave this?
One woman said she's never gonna listen again.
Wow. She cares enough. She'll listen again.